Sega had a number of excellent fighting games on the Saturn. Even though it had some visual issues, the first Virtua Fighter was a great playing game, and Sega was kind enough to rectify its shortcomings quickly with the equally great playing Virtua Fighter Remix. A year into the life of the Saturn, we got the high-resolution 60 frames per second Virtua Fighter 2, which immediately set a new standard for 3D fighting games on the platform, if not an entire generation of fighting games to come. Shortly after, we got the flashier and more dynamic Fighting Vipers, Sega's attempt at appealing to the folks looking for something a bit more casual and accessible. As good as these games were, there was an unmistakable problem with them all. They lacked the hidden content, unlockable characters, and sometimes humorous additions that other fighting games proudly advertised. The closest Sega had ever come to such a product was Virtua Fighter Kids and its playful presentation and unique endings, but this perhaps took it a bit too far. Lucky for us, at the very end of 1996, AM2 would create a game just for the Saturn faithful that would bring both Virtua Fighter and Fighting Vipers into one unbelievable product. This, my friends, is Fighter's Megamix. Right from the start, you get a sense that Fighter's Megamix was meant to be something different. The gameplay wasn't simply just a mashup of the two games, but also a ton of additions added to try and balance them out a bit. I mean, Virtua Fighter and Fighting Vipers had been two similar games control-wise, but they both felt quite a bit different in practice. There are actually two options that deal with this in the settings to make this feel either more like Virtua Fighter or more like Fighting Vipers. But in the end, the changes and additions are ever present and kind of feels like it's its own thing. The biggest changes come to Virtua Fighter characters, who now seem faster in both attack speed and recovery. This was a necessary change to allow them to keep up with the Fighting Vipers characters, particularly if you are playing Fighting Vipers style. Remember, in Fighting Vipers you had air recoveries, armor to smash off, and caged arenas that could be used for massive combo damage and throws. There aren't just caged arenas though, as the Virtua Fighter arenas are represented by flat areas that have an infinite plane that ditches the series' traditional ring outs. If you are new to both series and come in green, there is an excellent practice mode that shows you how to go through each character's basic moveset, getting you up to speed on what each one has to offer. As always, one of the great strengths of the AM2 fighting games was the sheer variety in fighting styles, and that shines here once again. While a handful of these fighters do play similar, the majority feel very much like their own thing, giving you a ton of replayability just learning the ins and outs of each style. Heck, go from somebody like Jeffrey to someone like Akira, and you are talking a serious change in gameplay. Bottom line here is this: the character roster is huge, the styles varied, and the melding of the two fighting engines brings both series to a middle ground that is fast, fun, and easy to pick up and play. Virtua Fighter 2 had been an instant hit visually for Saturn fans. It offered crisp textures and a beautiful color scheme across its many characters and stages. While Fighter's Megamix lacks the overall polish, it does do some things extremely well. First, the backgrounds all retain that excellent color from Virtua Fighter 2, all while adding caged arenas on some stages and the infinite planes of others. Fighter's Megamix characters are also lit properly according to what's going on in the stage. Sunsets, lights, and other sources show up properly here, adding some pizzazz to the normally featureless visuals that third-party software had. In effect, this looked far more like Fighting Vipers than Virtua Fighter 2. Where you land on whether this is a good thing or not probably depends on how you feel about resolution versus texture effects, but Fighter's Megamix is still a great-looking game from an artistic viewpoint, as well as the amount of stuff happening on the screen. The only real blemish on this otherwise stellar engine are the bouts of slowdown that pop up here and there. Most of the time it's momentary and bothers nothing at all. but every so often you get a spike that can really drag the action down. It's rare, but it's there. One area that Sega's fighting games never have gotten enough credit for are their excellent soundtracks. No joke, some of these tunes are straight up epic, and easily the driving force of some of the best fighting in the entire game. Listening to Akira, Dural, Sarah, or Wolf's theme in a close battle can give you the edge and motivation you need to pull out that win. Some of the Fighting Vipers music is quite good too, and I have quite a bit of it ripped to my car's MP3 player to listen to on road trips. Don't sleep on these masterpieces. There is truly some great stuff here. One area where Sega had been really stingy was extra or hidden content. I mean, there were a few hidden features in their fighting games, but it was often nothing of any real consequence. Thankfully, Fighters Megamix goes out of its way to correct much of this. When you first start up the game, you have loads of question marks in the character selection screen, a great sign for loads of hidden characters. You'll also notice that this game has a series of courses to play, each labeled alphabetically and having a name like Novice, Virtua Fighter, or Girls, indicating the theme of each one. As you play and defeat each one of these courses, you open up additional characters. Defeat all the courses available and you'll get more to mess around with. Again, each one themed. You'll get courses like Muscle, which has the characters that have big damage throws and combos, or both to deal with. The course Dirty Fighters will be composed of fighters that try and nickel and dime your life bar down with cheap hits, throws, and counters. Playing these courses on the highest difficulty can yield some serious challenge, especially if you are newer to these types of games. As you begin to open up the more comical characters, the game takes a turn to hilarity. Seeing the Virtua Fighter kids against the Sonic the Fighters guys has to bring a smile to your face. And speaking of, each one of these hidden characters also comes with a new arena to fight in. These arenas are themed with classic Sega franchises like Virtua Cop, Daytona USA, Sonic, and Rent-A-Hero. There was even a team battle mode that allowed you to set all the different options you wanted and just duke it out against the various fighters. This mode was available in both single and multiplayer configurations. Fighters Megamix has the extra content that previous Sega fighters had lacked, and it was a much needed adrenaline shot that I really wish they had done from the beginning. It made this game special and something you couldn't play outside of a Saturn console.
Fight! Ready, go!
With Fighters Megamix, we finally got a game that Sega had always needed for its underdog 32-bit machine. It was well received by the media of the time too, with even the lowest scores still recognizing that it was a solid experience. Sega heavily advertised it too, trying to alert the world that they had made something playful and different. It even got a full-on TV commercial in Japan, trying to bring back the Virtua Fighter fans that were being lost to the massive appeal of Sony and its PlayStation. Of course, by the time the US version had come out in mid-1997, the Saturn's throat had been slit proper by the new band of morons at Sega of America, making an already apathetic market care even less. What should have been a celebration of Sega making a benchmark title by which all of its arcade-like games could follow, it fell through the cracks with little fanfare, and only Sega fans of the time really recognizing just how much it had offered. If you own a Saturn today and are looking for an exclusive 3D fighting game to play, you can do a whole lot worse than Fighter's Megamix. It's got the polish of a great AM2 product and the extra content to keep you playing for weeks. I loved every minute of it, and it's easily one of my favorites for the Saturn. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.